What's up, y'all? Happy Thursday. Today I'm gonna do a video on how to compress vocals and using multi-band compressors to compress your vocals. I'm gonna show you a song that I've been working on recently, something that I've been mixing in the process of mixing. I already have these vocals mixed, and I'm gonna show you the first verse. So I'm gonna show you guys what it sounds like with the mix I already have, and then I'm gonna go another route with it and show you guys a different way to mix vocals, just so you can see the process from start to finish. So I'll show you that. So with vocals, compression is really important, and it's a big thing that can make or break your vocals. It's not a hard thing to learn, it's just knowing where to use it and how to use it, because you can overuse compression and you can underuse it really easy. And I think the way to get that good middle is to use multiple compressors. So I always start with a multi-band, and then as I start to EQ stuff and add effects, I'll still open my ear up for where compression can be needed. I don't like to use just one compressor, because when you overwork one compressor, your vocals start to sound too crushed. And so I'm gonna show you guys how I use multiple compressors to compress my vocals. So I'm gonna show you what the project looks like so you guys know what I'm doing. These two tracks that I'm highlighting, these are the tracks for the verse. And what I had it do was I had these two verse tracks in the yellow, and I sent it to this verse bus, so that way I could add effects to both of those tracks at the same time using less CPU, instead of having to copy and paste effects over to each track. I just have those two dry tracks go into one, and then that way it's easier for me to manipulate the both of those, because I want them to sound the same. They're part of the same verse, I just had to dub them, and some of the lines cross over each other, so you want them in different tracks. You can see my vocal chain right here. Over here I only have two compressors. So I have this OTT compressor, which is a multi-band, and then I have this other compressor here at the end. So you can see that I use two different ones to prevent from overworking that OTT too much. Here is what the vocals sound like by themselves with the original effects that I put on the tracks.
I should've known I'd fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always make me wanna spend all my change.
So there's that. So what I'm gonna do is I made a second verse bus right here. I added just gate in the auto tune, not really important things to show right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these original tracks and send them to that new verse bus. So then that way it doesn't have those effects that the original effect chain did. So here's what they sound like without them.
Known I'd fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always.
So a lot different. You can tell right away that the transients are all the way up and down. My vocals are not even. So let's clean those up a bit. So besides the gate and the auto-tune, what I'm gonna start with is, instead of using that OTT, I'm gonna show you guys how to use a multi-band compressor. And I am not absolutely pro at using multi-band compressors. I found that it's really hard to use them the right way. It takes a lot of trial and error, and that's why I have to use multiple compressors. First, you want to edit the bandpass parameters. And so, like, as you can see here, you have your lows, low mids, mids, high mids, and your highs. For vocals, what I have found is that you do not need to mess with these lows at all, just because in vocals, you're not going to have anything that's 70 hertz and below, or at least you shouldn't. What I do is I just move that over. That eliminates that low frequency bandpass. And so now I only have four: my low mid, mid, high mid, and highs. So what I like to do at first is I like to start with the highs. And so what I do is I just play, listen to it, and I adjust the parameter to where I'm just targeting a certain frequency. So for the highs, I want something around maybe the 4K and higher, but we listen to that to adjust. So here we go.
I should've known.
I stopped at like the 3.8 kilohertz, because what I found is as I slowly moved that parameter over, I could start to hear lower parts of my voice. So when I'm starting over here, you can only hear like pretty much just breath and air. And so as I move that over, I found at the 3.8 mark that was kind of where that breathiness kind of stopped. And so next I'm gonna move to the high mids. So I'm gonna solo that, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna start as much over as I can, and I'm gonna slowly sweep over until I start to hear stuff that I wouldn't classify as high mid.
Got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always make me wanna spend all my change. She fucked up whatever, tryna come back, be resentful.
So I would say about right there. You don't have to be too picky about it. Just get a general idea. Don't, go too crazy over it. So let's go to the mids.
Different kind of handful. No, she had enough, ain't much she can handle. Ain't no way that I let those things of mine go away. Many ways I'm caught up, spending every day doing things I thought of.
So about 200. Then, of course, everything else is going to be this low mid, which sounds like this. Stuff you don't really hear in vocals anyway, so you don't want to take it all the way out, but I'll show you guys that in a minute. So once I have that, I'm going to start one by one compressing each parameter, and that's why it's called multi-band compression, because you take one band, you compress it, you take one frequency band, compress it, so on and so forth. What I like to do, I just like to start with the lows because I feel like those are the easiest to start with. So I'm gonna solo this and then I'm gonna compress as normal. What I found with the really lows in your vocals is you really want to compress hard, so I usually start with a 4:1 ratio and slowly bring the threshold down. And you just want to do it enough so it sounds natural. You don't want it to sound too compressed right off of the gate. I'm gonna adjust my attack and release, and that's really important for compression. Get familiar with your attack and release on your compressor, because that's what makes or breaks a compressor. You can mess with the threshold all day, but you will never get it exactly right if you don't mess with the attack and release parameters. Usually with low end in your vocals, the attack can be pretty quick, and then your release is kind of going to be longer, so. And how you want to think of it is you want your compressor to hit with your vocals. So when you look at the wave track of your vocals, you see the ups and downs. You kind of want the compressor to react the opposite way that your waves are showing, if that makes any sense. So let's move to the mids now. That sounds pretty good.
I go away. Many ways I'm caught up, spending every day doing things I thought of. Too sane in the things I should have.
And with the mids, you want that to breathe more, so you want to be a little lighter on the compression with it.
On things that I ain't used to, you're going always. Make me want to spend all my change.
So that sounds pretty good. Let's go to the high mids.
Many ways I'm caught up, spending every day doing things I thought of. Too sane in the things I should have. Chose you every day I could have. Yeah. No night, ayy. Fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You're going always. Make me wanna spend all my change. She fucked up whatever, tryna come back, be resentful. New bitch, hella sexy is a different need, ayy. Fall in love with your game and got me on things.
And you can tell as I got into the high mids that my attack is longer and my release is shorter. And the reason why you want your attack to be a little longer is because you want your P's and Q's and your pronunciation to go through. I think that sounds good. Now let's go to the really high frequencies here. So after I, roughly compress a little bit of each band, what I do is I listen to it all together now.
I should've known I'd fall in love with you.
Compared to this.
Game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You're going always.
So there's a lot of body in it, but you can tell that everything's just a little tighter. So at the end of that, I'm going to mess with the gain and I'm going to use this as a quote unquote EQ. So what I usually do is I start with these high mids, I'll solo this and the mids. And then I'll just turn down to what I think needs to be turned down as I add stuff.
Fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You're going always. Make me wanna spend all my change. She fucked up whatever, tryna come back, be resentful. New bitch, hella sexy is a different kind of handful. No, she had enough, ain't much she can handle. Go away. Many ways I'm caught up, spending every day doing things I thought of.
And there we go. That's the first round of compression. And so I'm focusing on compression today, so I won't go into EQ, but I'm just going to do a rough EQ, take out some of the stuff that I feel like is kind of muddying it up. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to throw a regular compressor on it, because I can tell that everything isn't completely compressed together, and then I'll just use it to kind of tidy it up.
Game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always make me wanna spend all my change. She fucked up whatever, tryna come back, be resentful. Ain't no way that I let those things of mine go away. Many ways I'm caught up, spending every day doing things I thought of. Fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always.
And so I just did that very lightly again, but you can tell that it kind of just brought all of those frequencies in my vocals together. I'll probably just put a EQ on it again.
Going always make me wanna spend all my change. She fucked up whatever, tryna come back, be resentful.
So I feel like that sounds pretty decent, especially for the time that I spent doing this. But let's compare this to the other effects chain that I have. So I'm gonna send these over back to the other bus, and let's compare.
I should've known I'd fall in love with your game and got me on things that I ain't used to. You going always make me wanna spend all my change.
Now let's send it back to the other one, compare it again.
New bitch hella sassy is a different kind of handful. No, she had enough, ain't much she can handle. Ain't no way that I let those things of mine go away. Many ways I'm caught up, spending every...
So there's a little bit of a difference. It seems like the mix that I spent more time on earlier has a little bit more warmth, and I think that's mostly because of this OTT compressor. I really like this. It just adds something. It's a multi-band like the one I showed you, but I wanted to put the other one on to show you guys in depth on what the multi-band compressor actually does. That's just all I wanted to show you guys. It's all about experimenting. It's all about the mic you use. It's all about the voice that's recording. So my recommendation for compressing vocals is start light, make calculated decisions, and then keep adding compressors as you go, because you don't want to overwork just one compressor. That's where you get, vocals that just sound smushed. You can tell sometimes in amateur mixes and some of my early mixes too, that a lot of the vocals are just smashed and that there's no body to it and there's no life. You still want to be able to differentiate when you're talking quiet and then when you're talking loud. So that's that for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll go deeper into other mixing tips and stuff like that. So I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.